So, welcome back to Andrew's Film Education.
I still think that needs a better name as well, because that's also appalling.
Well,
wait, aren't you calling it...
How about, as a better name, Androcalypse Now?
Jesus Christ, that is bad.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay,
So
sure.
in this segment, we introduce Andrew to classic films that he's never seen and I've not seen for a little while. I think I last saw... Well, when did I see Apocalypse Now last? Probably like a year or two ago. But yeah, so Apocalypse Now we're doing, which is the Francis Ford Coppola Vietnam War epic from 1979. One of my favourite films.
One of your favourite films, is it really?
It's not, it's not a 10 out of 10. It's not like, but it's knocking on the door of for me.
Really? Okay.
Let's get on to this one. So very, very, very quickly, for those who haven't seen it, this is about, it's an adaptation of Joseph Conrad's Hearts of Darkness, about this Vietnam soldier, very jaded, seen his fair share of battles, who is sent back into the fray to go up this river into Cambodia to take out Colonel Kurtz, who has gone rogue and, is basically gone insane, and the US wants him assassinated, but very quietly under the books. And as it's Captain Willard, isn't it, who goes up this river,
yeah.
And as he goes, it's sort of, the world around him gets weirder and weirder as, it is sort of visual metaphor for the loss of sanity in the face of warfare. Ooh.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what did you think of Apocalypse Now then?
I thought it was... there's a lot of merit there. And I think there's a lot of very good bits in it. But it's very dry. And I don't know, it was... Because I don't want to say it's boring, because it's definitely not boring, but towards the end of it, especially like within the last 45 minutes, when he's met the Colonel Kurtz, I was drifting off to sleep, and it was like a struggle to stay awake. And I think it's such a, like, that end, that like final act is such like a fucking wind down from the rest of the film.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
That it sort of lost me a bit. Because up until that moment, there is this fear of the unknown, because you're like, oh shit, what is Colonel Kurtz going to be like? He's obviously this monster. You don't know what he's going to be like. The deeper and deeper you get into the jungle, it is, scarier, and everyone's going more mad. We've lost so many people on the way.
Yeah,
and then you fucking meet him, and he's just this fat bald bloke, and you're like, oh okay. And then it sort of lost me there.
I do. So certainly when I first watched it, when I must have been about 13, I do agree with you on that point. I think at the time I was like, we've got this like 2/3 of a film about like the Vietnam War and, all that kind of stuff. And then at the end it sort of becomes Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And I remember finding that kind of change quite incongruous at the time. I've warmed to it in recent years, because obviously it is about like the breakdown of sanity, and in turn the breakdown of civilization the further they get in, to the point they've almost gone back in time. So I appreciate it on an academic level, but I do agree it definitely, the pace drops off. And I think because he goes there and he sort of gets captured, and he sort of just like sits there being captured for a while before, I don't know, I just feel there's a lot of bumming about at the end.
Yeah, there's a lot of, but also it feels like unexplained, like he has this mission, and then you have the voiceover being like, oh, I didn't really want to do it. And it's like, so he just fucking sits there doing nothing for 40 minutes, and then he's like, oh, I will do it. And then he does it, and he fucking kills him, and then he just leaves, and then it ends, and it's like, oh, okay then. There's sort of, I don't know, it feels like it needed more. There was almost no like tension there at all, because it's like, I never felt like there was inner turmoil of him deciding whether or not he should kill this man. It's just like he fucking sits there doing nothing for 40 minutes, and then he's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to kill him now.
As I recall, there's almost like a sense of like he doesn't decide, but more like Colonel Kurtz decides for him almost.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, he's not killing me because he wants me to kill him, or so. Like I remember that being like almost his logic by the end of it.
It's like, well, yeah, there is a bit where he's like, everyone wanted me to do it, including him. Colonel Kurtz, like, because he wanted to die standing up like a soldier.
Yeah,
And it's like, okay. I don't know. The end was its weakest part, I thought.
I think that is fair. And I think also, I don't know what you feel about this, but like, so the opening sequence is fantastic. Like that sort of, this cacophony of sound and sort of vision and this sort of, probably one of the originators of the sort of the PTSD kind of like trope.
Yeah.
In terms of the way those are like edited and stuff. But then there's also, I feel like when he's having dinner with those the CIA people,
Fucking Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
I didn't know Harrison Ford was in it. He just shows up and he's like in it for 5 seconds.
And like again, I understand the point of this scene because it is like, this, amongst the warfare and all the shit that's going to go down, here's like these very civilized people having a very civilized dinner, and would you like a prawn? And like it's all to then contrast later. But I still think that first 40 minutes after that opening is a bit on the dry. Like it takes a while to really get into it. Once he's in the fray and he meets Kilgore, then it's fine from then on.
I think that's definitely the best sequence. Is that?
Oh, the Rise of the Valkyries.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like that's infamous, isn't it? Like
it is, but it's infamous for a reason.
Yeah,
because like
it's fantastic. Like that bit was very, very, very good.
And also, again, this is 1979. No compute. They bought all these helicopters. They napalm tree lines. They built these cities and destroyed. And there's this great wide shot from like the helicopter's point of view, and we just see like these explosions go off amongst the bridge amongst this colossal set, and it's the sheer scale of that battle. Yeah. But also, like it so perfectly encapsulates in the smaller moments of the scene that the horror of the Vietnam War, in the sense that like the American aggressors were so outclassed them in terms of technology and sort of intent. They come in with these helicopters and just like blow the shit out of everything. And this girl managed to throw a grenade into a helicopter and it takes out one helicopter out of 10 or whatever. I mean, it's immediately just gunned down. They call her a fucking savage. Direct quote. And it's like that's it. That was Vietnam. That one little like minute of action perfectly sums up the entire kind of like attitude towards
conflict.
Also, there's in the scene just before, there's the bit when we first see Kilgore and he sees like this one of the Viet Cong women who's been like injured, or is it a man?
It's a man,
one of them. Yeah, he's been injured, and he's like, oh, give him some water, and he's like doing this whole thing about like, oh, we've got to give him water, and he gets distracted and just forgets, and the guy's just like trying to grab this water, and he's just already forgotten in a split second. And like again, a great introduction to his character.
It is amazing, like, and I feel so much of that film is just allegorical, isn't it? Or probably, everything is.
Yeah.
And it is good, but I can't say that I love it. Or, it's... maybe I will warm to it.
I think it does take repeated viewing, certainly. There's also a thing about... Because I don't know if you know the history of this film technically, but like it was basically the first film to have surround sound in the way that we know it today.
Okay.
And the idea was they were going to build this custom cinema in America specifically to play this film, and then it would just play there forever. And if you wanted to see Apocalypse Now, you'd have to go to this cinema from wherever and see it there. Yeah. I mean, of course, that fell apart because it was in the middle of the 70s, by which point, multiplexes were becoming a thing and the whole landscape changed.
Yeah.
But like, so this film basically like invented surround sound to some extent. And like, you can, I've had better experiences watching this film on like the big downstairs TV with the lights off and the surround sound cranked up. And I think, sort of like we were saying with Hamilton, I think without the right sound system, there is a sort of an element of that scale and sort of atmosphere does get lost a bit.
Yeah. So the other thing is that, and I don't know what you think about this, but in terms of character, it was very hard to be emotionally connected to any of them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, yeah.
To the point where when fucking Lawrence Fishburne dies, when the guy with the mustache gets his head fucking chopped off, it's like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, I certainly, compared to Alien, for example, in the same way as like a core group of people who eventually get picked off. I don't think any of them. Well, they're not characterized. I don't think they have anywhere near the right extent to like fully know them as characters and
Yeah.
really care for them in the same way something like Alien does. Like they are almost just like the soldier fodder.
Yeah. But like they make a big deal. So Lawrence Fishburne's in this film, and he's like 12 years old. He's like fresh out of preschool. He's still got acne. It's like it was incredibly hard. It took me a while to recognize that it was him.
Yeah,
it's like, oh my god. But he's got the tape from his mum, and it's playing in the background when he dies. And because he gets shot and he's like dying, bleeding out, and the tape is playing in the background.
Yeah.
And the tape's like, oh yeah, make sure you stay out of trouble and avoid the bullets and be home soon. And you can see he's just fucking dead. And it's like,
yeah,
that should have been a lot more powerful than it was. But it just wasn't it just wasn't that powerful. Like it didn't. I was like, okay. He's dead and that's a bit sad, but it should have been devastating and it just wasn't.
See, I half disagree because I'd say it has the intended effect, but not from a character perspective, but just from this,
It shows you the horrors of war, and it's like,
yeah, it's partially knowing, but this was that happened. People were getting these these like teenagers getting tapes from their mother and then being shot. Like it, so there's a sense of realism to it, and there's also like even when you don't know who the character is as such, that kind of thing is still sad just because of the nature of it. But I didn't feel for his character as a character. I just felt like generically sad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. But also, the other thing is how quickly the other characters just shrug it off. One of the characters cries about it, and then it just cuts to black, and then fades back in, and he's completely fine again, and they've completely forgotten that guy's died. And also, so the main character, like Martin Sheen, just basically never shows any emotion throughout. And it's like, okay, how are we supposed to identify with these people when their best friends die and they don't give a fuck,
It's the problem with having a jaded protagonist, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's sort of like, even if he was showing that brave face to his men and then, you saw him shed a tear inside, but you don't, he just never mentions him again, doesn't give a fuck. And it's sort of like, well, if our main protagonist doesn't care, why should we?
Yeah.
I did feel like that a lot throughout. And I mean, I don't know, because his entire crew just dies and he just doesn't bat an eyelid.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's an element of like it's, they're almost tools to him. They're just people getting him to where he needs to go. Like you can see earlier on, he doesn't try to get involved with them. He sort of very much keeps to himself.
Yeah.
And like, I suppose it'd be out of character for him to really like. So I think the connection isn't, I know this is counterintuitive, but like, even though he's a protagonist, we don't care about them because he does. We just care about them, except for despite him, almost. Because it's all so like so if you think about like, so obviously Willard's been in the wars and he knows all this. He's jaded. He's used to innocent men and young people dying, so it doesn't matter to him. Whereas audience members, we don't know. And also, if you think this was like one of the first, besides the Deer Hunter, this was like the first really big Vietnam War film. So this was still, these kind of emotions, while nowadays are almost cliche, this was shocking certainly at the time. So like as audiences, despite Willard being jaded, we're fresh to this. We're fresh to his horror and trauma, and we're like, Jesus, this is happening. These innocent people being killed. So I guess that's more the angle, which I know is isn't great screenwriting necessarily, but
I guess it's just a hard sell, isn't it?
Yeah, I do think. Well, I mean, I haven't watched The Godfather for a long time, but I remember one of my problems with it also was I didn't find there was much sort of emotion in like Al Pacino's character in that. So maybe that's a Francis Ford Coppola directing thing. Like maybe.
Yeah, it could be. But it's not, look, emotionless can work, but I don't know, just in this case, like, it was very hard to feel attached to any of them.
Yeah.
You can have emotionless characters and still be like, I really like them. You can have jaded characters and be like, oh, I still really like them. Like, think about, like, Logan in Logan. He's very jaded, isn't he? And he's like, fuck this. I don't want to do this anymore. but you still very much attached to him, and you still very, very much care about him. And I think even though he's jaded and doesn't want to care, it's like you still feel for him and you still cry with him, and whereas in this it's like he doesn't care. It's hard to make ourselves care. And even when he then goes, he accepts the mantle of Jungle King or whatever the fuck he was. It's like, okay, what next? Oh, he's just going to leave. Oh, and the film's ended. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not a strong character film as such. It's definitely more about, like I was saying, like about the allegory and about.
Yeah, it's definitely allegorical. Like,
yeah, I mean, and the original novel was very much, all just a metaphor. I think that this story is more about. I mean, for one thing, it's way more internal than it is external character-wise. So it's not about relationships; it's about inner turmoil and sort of dissent. Amidst the backdrop. So I think that has a genuine weakness with the story.
I did feel like it was missing a scene off the end. It just felt like it just ended, and I was like expecting some sort of bit about him getting back to civilization.
Well, I mean, would he go back to civilization though?
I suppose that's but I wanted to see some sort of resolution, yeah, because it felt like it just ends and that's it. There is no reward. Like, this whole thing is meeting this man, like achieving this mission, and there's no sort of like resolution there. He just he kills the dude and then that's it. There's no consequences, there's no sort of payoff. He just kills him and then he fucking leaves, and then it's cut to black, done.
Yeah. Which, I mean, there's the argument of, like, his entire mission was to kill Kurtz. He's killed Kurtz, and that's the end of the story. What happens next?
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose. I don't know, I just wanted a bit more from it, I guess.
There may have been some... so we'll talk quickly about the Redux version.
Okay.
I can't remember specifically there's something at the end on that, but, like... So the Redux version has an extra, I think it's 50 minutes worth of scenes added.
Right.
Most of them are minor things. So, like, for example, there's the Playboy helicopter comes down. There's that whole scene.
Yeah.
And then later on in Redux, they find the helicopters crashed somewhere, and they find the Playboy bunnies, like, stranded.
Right.
And then one of them has sex with them, and then they move on.
Okay.
So as an example, so there's, like, lots of little scenes like that, which sort of don't really add anything as such. But, I guess they filmed them there and there. The main one for me, and the main reason I said to watch theatrical rather than Redux, because basically I think all of the scenes are added, which are then bloated to like a 200-minute running time, just slow it down even further.
Yeah, like, it was very slow, I felt.
Yeah.
Because you have like highs of these really intense, like amazing war scenes, and then it's like peaks and troughs, but it feels like there's a lot more troughs than there are peaks, you know?
Which is why I'd have hated Redux, because there's like... I can't remember specifically when this is, but I think it's quite near the end. Like, I think it's when they're nearly at Kurtz's compound. They come across this, like, plantation owned by these posh people, who I think of, like, English as well. And they get off the boat and they go and have tea with them and have a lovely little merry old time in the plantation. And again, one of them has sex as well, I think, for some reason. I don't know why that's a theme of the Redux version. But this scene lasts... I think it must be at least 40 minutes of the extra 50 added. It takes so long. And at the end of the film, when we already, like, descent, fully into, like, insanity, and then, I don't know if that's the point, like, there's this island of, like, sanity within the mess, which in itself is more insane, like in a sort of Alice in Wonderland kind of way. But it slams the pacing to an absolute halt for, like, 30, 40 minutes. And then sort of just continues. It's like, what is that there for? So that's the main reason I told you not to watch Redux, because that's...
Fair enough.
Yeah. It's not a terrible watch, but I do think theatrical is just so much more superior. It does, like, the extra stuff isn't necessary, I think.
Okay. It's good. I think... I don't know. I'll see if it grows on me at all.
Yeah. So would you consider it a classic? Do you think it's, like, worthy of being a classic?
It is a classic, isn't it? Because it's got so much in it that is parodied over and over again by like everything else. Mainly The Simpsons is all I can think of right now. But you know, it's that helicopter scene is infamous. The bit of him popping his head out the water is, you know, very famous. There's so much of it that is just iconic, and I think it definitely deserves to be a classic. And I think it definitely has its problems that I've raised.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I will grow to like it a bit more, because it's so dry and it was so slow that it was almost off-putting, you know.
I think you also have to be in the right mood for it as well. Because like when I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago for this, I definitely wasn't in the right mood, and I can definitely see the problems of it being slow and being sort of underwhelming when you're not in that very specific mood. It's similar to Blade Runner in a way. Blade Runner also doesn't work if you're not in the right mood for it. So I think it's one of those films. But like Blade Runner, I think the audio visual sort of pizzazz of it, like it's such a great film in terms of the AV spectacle.
Yeah.
And that's what it's there for, and I think that's sort of its big virtue.
Okay. Well, I'm interested to watch Hearts of Darkness as well.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. We could do that on Quest for Truth even.
We can indeed.
I mean, technically I've already seen it, but we'll rewatch it anyway. But yeah. Which so for those who don't know, Hearts of Darkness is the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now, which was infamously one of the most cursed productions of probably any film. Like, I think it took 4 years to make that film. Like, they started in 1976 and finished in 1979 or something crazy.
Right.
And like everything that could go wrong in a film set went wrong in Apocalypse Now, and the documentary documents all of that.
The documentary is as famous as the film itself.
Yeah,
you know? Like the documentary is supposed to be one of the best making of documentaries ever made.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll give that a watch and do it on Quest for Truth at some point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.